Today's recipe is basically the opposite of everything you typically look for in a chocolate chip cookie. While I like them chewy and tender and soft for days, today's recipe is snappy. It's crisp, it's literally brittle. And I kind of actually think of it as a combo between a chocolate chip cookie and a peanutless peanut brittle. So to get started with this cookie candy combo, you are going to need to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. You will need 8 tablespoons of softened, unsalted butter to start. Drop that in a mixing bowl. And for our sugars, you'll need 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. That's 150 grams. And you will need 1/4 cup or 50 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar. We had to keep the ratio of brown sugar a little bit lighter in this recipe because brown sugar is really good at making cookies nice and chewy. We wanted the flavor, but not the chewiness, so just a little. All right, grab an electric mixer. We're going to cream together the butter and sugar until it's light and fluffy. You could absolutely use a stand mixer with a paddle attachment for this recipe, but we're just using the hand mixer today. Let's go ahead and mix this. So one of the most important ingredients for cookie brittle was adding air into the recipe. That air is what keeps it brittle and snappy and porous. So that's why we choose to cream together the butter and the sugar here to help incorporate air. Looking good here. So our next ingredient is going to be part of an egg. So you'll need 1 large egg, but we're only using half of it. And it's not the half we normally use. So with chocolate chip cookies, I usually drop in, this isn't cooperating, there we go. I usually drop in an extra yolk because the egg yolk makes things tender and chewy, but we want crisp and airy instead. So we're going to set aside the yolk and we're just adding 1 large egg white. And the temperature of this egg doesn't really matter for this recipe. So cold, warm, use whatever. Before we mix any further, we'll add a teaspoon of vanilla extract, one of my favorite ingredients. I just ordered a bunch new vanilla beans to make some more. I do have a tutorial that I shared a while ago. Let's stir this again really well. I mean, you don't have to go crazy, but make sure everything's nicely combined. And I'm going to slide this out of the way, grab a separate bowl for our dry ingredients, and we'll add 1 1/4 cups or 156 grams of all-purpose flour. Another super important ingredient is a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda adds all of those little air pockets and air bubbles. It's going to make it porous, snappable. You need baking soda. In fact, that's one of the things that I think really sets my recipe apart from a lot of others. A lot of cookie brittle out there is basically a shortbread, and I wanted this to really be like a chocolate chip cookie and peanut brittle had a baby. So, you know, minus the peanuts. Use the baking soda. Of course, we'll need a little bit of salt as well. We'll just do 1/2 teaspoon of table salt in with the dry ingredients, and then we'll be adding flaky sea salt on top, which is so good. Let's bring this back over here, and we'll stir the dry ingredients into the wet. I'll just do like half at a time, so hopefully flour doesn't go everywhere. Add a little bit. We'll lose a tablespoon of butter right there. The rest. And just wait until you taste this. I'm so excited to hear what you think and how this turns out in your own kitchen, because we made about 30 batches of this before I was happy with the recipe, and I gained about 5 pounds when we were testing it just from eating so much. Don't recommend that. Chocolate chip cookie brittle, we need chocolate chips. So I like to use a mix of mini and regular sized chocolate chips. We're using semi-sweet. We'll stir these into the batter. And now, this is the most difficult part of the whole recipe. It's not really that hard. We need our baking pans. So you'll bake the cookie brittle on 2 different baking pans. This is really important. I'm using jelly roll pans, but if you don't have jelly roll and just want to use standard cookie sheets, that'll be fine. You're just not going to fill the whole sheet. We are going to lightly grease each pan with a little bit of butter. This is really soft butter, so I'm just gonna kind of smear it on and then use a paper towel to spread it in a thin layer. You do not want to use too much or your cookie brittle is gonna be like greasy. So just a really thin layer to keep it from sticking, and it'll also add a little flavor on the bottom. You could use salted butter for this if you wanted, but I just use unsalted. Such a small amount doesn't make a difference. So I just grease the whole pan, but I don't like to really be able to see the butter when I'm done, if that makes sense. All right, now we're going to divide the cookie dough in half. Half will go into each pan. Some there, some there. Just eyeballing it. Probably not the best method, but it works. It's been working pretty well. You can weigh it if you prefer. All right, let's just work with 1 pan for now. We're going to take this cookie dough and we're going to spread it in a really thin layer. So I start with a spoon just to kind of distribute it. You will not fill up the whole pan. If you're using a jelly roll pan, you'll fill up most of it, but don't panic when you're like, it's not filling the whole thing. Your goal is to spread this into as thin of a layer as possible. And like I said, right now I'm just distributing it. But the best way to do this is, once you get it kind of thin, grab a piece of wax or parchment paper. I do this with my Millionaire shortbread too. and use your hands or the back of a spoon, this works too. Spread it into a super thin layer. Hopefully your paper is a little more sturdy than mine. Technically, all of this dough would probably fit pretty well into a basic cookie sheet, but then you run into the issue of having a larger amount of dough in the middle, and it doesn't cook as fast, so you end up with burnt ends and a center that's not crispy and it's chewy. We want the whole thing to be crisp, so we divide it into 2 pans. My wax paper keeps ripping. I think I'm gonna recommend parchment paper to make your life easier, and it will spread some in the oven too, of course, but give it a good head start. All right, take a look. Back so he doesn't burn. Then I'll add a couple of chocolate chips on top just for decoration. All right, we have 2 pans. I recommend baking them one at a time. First can kind of be your test, and they're going to bake a little more evenly if you do it one at a time. Center rack of your 375 Fahrenheit preheated oven. I find they typically need to bake for about 15 to 18 minutes. When it's finished baking, it should be a nice, pretty deep golden brown color all over. Oh, I know you're looking at it first and you're like, oh, it looks kind of weird. Just trust me on this, it's gonna taste amazing. As soon as it comes out of the oven, or while it's still warm, we are going to sprinkle a bit of Flaky sea salt. I love this Maldon sea salt. Buy it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. I use it on everything. It adds such a gourmet touch. Don't forget to bake your other pan as well. The brittle will be chewy until it's cooled completely. Also, the chocolate chips you sprinkled on top are gonna be a little bit messy until they have reset, which takes even longer. If you break into your cookie brittle after it's cooled completely and it just seems like it's still a little too chewy, pop it back in the oven for just a couple more minutes, even if you've already broken it. All right, final step. You're gonna break it. If you greased your pan properly, and I don't like to use parchment, it comes out crisper if you don't, we will be able to just snap it. It's so fun. Break it just like you would peanut brittle into like weird shapes. Doesn't have to be uniform. You can flip it over and you can see that it's, you know, porous inside and brittle. If you want, you can drizzle this with a little bit of extra melted chocolate after it's cooled. That just kind of makes it look pretty. I don't think it really needs more chocolate, but you know, if you're putting this in like a Christmas cookie box, it's a nice little touch. Can you hear that like snappy crisp? If yours doesn't sound like that, put it back in the oven. This one's a little bit different, so I really want to hear what you think of it. Do you want to see more unique recipes like this? Let me know in the comments. I always love hearing from you. That texture. I could just eat this all day. Snappy, crisp, literally brittle. Just spread it into a thin, oops. I appreciate your dedication.